Welcome to SleepScape. If you enjoy this, you can like the video and subscribe for more. If there's a story that you'd like for me to tell, feel free to leave a comment. It helps more than you know. Now, let's get into it. In 1988, a 23-year-old single mother named Jackie Hernandez moved into a small rented bungalow on West 11th Street in San Pedro, California, hoping it would serve as a fresh start during one of the most difficult periods of her life. At the time, Jackie was pregnant, working multiple jobs, attending school part-time, and going through a stressful divorce. Financially, her options were limited. The house she rented wasn't ideal, but it was affordable, and more importantly, it was available. The neighborhood itself was quiet, a working-class area with modest homes and little reason to draw attention. The bungalow looked like any other house on the street. Single story, simple layout, small yard, and an attic space above the kitchen. For Jackie, it wasn't about comfort. It was about stability. For the first time, everything seemed normal. Then, small things began to happen. Objects would go missing and later reappear in different locations. Items she was certain she had just set down would no longer be where she left them. Occasionally, she would hear faint knocking sounds, subtle at first, like something tapping from inside the walls. There were also smells. Not constant, but intermittent. A sour, unpleasant odor that would drift through certain rooms and then disappear just as quickly. At times, it seemed strongest near the kitchen, though there was never an obvious source. Given the stress she was under, Jackie initially dismissed these experiences. Lack of sleep, emotional strain, and the demands of daily life provided a reasonable explanation. But over time, the frequency increased. The noises became more distinct, the misplaced objects became harder to rationalize, and the overall feeling inside the house began to change. Jackie later described it as a constant awareness that she wasn't alone. Not in a vague sense, but something more immediate, as if something was always just behind her, watching. The moment that changed everything came one evening while she was sitting in her living room. From where she was sitting, she could partially see into the hallway. Out of the corner of her eye, she noticed movement. A pencil holder sitting on a table had lifted into the air. It didn't tip over or slide. It lifted. For a brief moment, it hovered. Then it moved. Fast. The object shot down the hallway toward her with enough force to make it clear this wasn't accidental. Startled, Jackie grabbed her son and ran out of the house. She went to a neighbor's home and called the police, hoping for some kind of explanation. When the officers arrived, they found nothing unusual. No signs of forced entry, no damage that couldn't be explained. To them, it was a misunderstanding. But for Jackie, it marked a clear shift. Something inside that house had just acted with intent. In the days that followed, others began to experience similar events. Her neighbor, Susan Castaneda, later described hearing a loud crash in another room while visiting. When they went to investigate, they found that a painting had fallen, but not beneath where it had been hanging. It had landed several feet away, as if it had been thrown. On another occasion, Susan reported seeing a lamp move across a room before dropping. It didn't tip over or fall down, it was moving. At that point, the activity could no longer be explained as stress or imagination. Multiple people were witnessing the same thing. Over time, the activity escalated. After the birth of her second child, the situation intensified significantly. What had once been minor disturbances became more aggressive and unpredictable. One night, Jackie noticed a dark liquid seeping from the ceiling and running down the walls of her kitchen. The substance was thick, heavy, and deep in color. It resembled blood. Concerned about a leak, she climbed onto a washing machine to reach the attic hatch. The opening was small, forcing her to lift herself carefully to look inside. As she pushed the hatch open and looked into the darkness, her eyes adjusted just enough to make out shapes. That's when she saw it. A human head, floating in the corner of the attic, detached, motionless at first, staring directly at her. Within seconds, it moved rapidly toward her. Startled, Jackie fell backward into the kitchen, hitting the floor and breaking down in panic. She refused to enter the attic again, but whatever she had seen did not remain confined to that space. Not long after, she reported seeing a full figure inside her children's room. She described an elderly man with gray, sunken skin, wearing a red flannel vest. The figure was sitting on a bed, watching her. The detail that stood out most to her was the eyes. Red, focused. Moments later, the figure disappeared. At that point, Jackie sought outside help. She contacted Barry Taft, a parapsychologist known for investigating thousands of reported hauntings over the course of his career. Taft agreed to visit the home with his team. When they arrived, they immediately noticed a strong, unpleasant odor throughout the house. It seemed to be coming from the attic. They also reported hearing heavy movement above them, not faint noises, distinct sounds as if something large was moving through the space. Two members of the team entered the attic to investigate. Inside, visibility was extremely limited. Using a camera flash to briefly illuminate the area, they attempted to document what they were experiencing. During this process, one of them reported that the camera was suddenly pulled from his hands and thrown across the attic. The force was strong enough to separate parts of the equipment. They exited shortly afterward. The situation continued to escalate. Jackie later reported that objects were being thrown throughout the house, aggressively. She also described being physically attacked, grabbed and restrained by something she couldn't see. In one incident, she claimed she was held down and unable to breathe. When Taft's team returned, they again entered the attic. During this visit, one of the investigators suddenly began shouting. A cord had wrapped tightly around his neck, pinning him against a wooden beam. Although he remained conscious, he required assistance to free himself. No one present could explain how the cord had moved or tightened. Following this incident, the team ended their investigation at the property. Shortly afterward, Jackie made the decision to leave. She relocated hundreds of miles north, hoping distance would put an end to the events. For a brief time it did. The activity stopped. The house was gone. The experiences faded. Then they returned. Months later, Jackie began reporting similar occurrences in her new home. Scratching sounds, unexplained movement, lights appearing without a clear source. In one incident, her daughter's bed caught fire after Jackie reported seeing a dark mist moving through the hallway. Neighbors in the area also claimed to witness unusual events, including reflections of a man's face appearing in unexpected places. At that point, it became difficult to argue that the phenomenon was tied to a single location. It appeared to be following her. When Jackie first contacted Barry Taff, this wasn't the first time he had seen a case like this. Years earlier, he had investigated the Doris Bither case, another California case involving a single mother who claimed her home was being overtaken by an unseen force. Like Jackie, Doris Bither reported objects moving, unexplained noises, and physical attacks. Investigators documented strange activity inside the home, including objects reportedly moving on their own and unexplained light phenomena appearing in multiple rooms. As with the San Pedro case, the evidence was inconsistent. Photographs failed to clearly capture what witnesses claimed to see, and much of the documentation relied on personal testimony. But there was another similarity that stood out. Doris, like Jackie, was under extreme personal stress. Her life was unstable, and the activity escalated during that period. Over time, Taft began to notice a pattern. Many of the most intense cases he investigated didn't center around locations. They centered around individuals. Specifically, individuals experiencing high levels of emotional or psychological strain. Some researchers have suggested that in certain cases, poltergeist activity may not originate from an external entity at all. Instead, it may be produced by the individual experiencing it. Not intentionally, not consciously, but as a form of psychological release that manifests physically. If that theory holds any truth, it changes how cases like this are understood, because it would mean the source of the disturbance wasn't the house. It was something connected to the person living inside it. Eventually, Jackie moved again, and this time, the activity stopped completely. To this day, the events surrounding the San Pedro house remain heavily debated. Some believe the case represents the most extreme examples of poltergeist activity ever reported. Others point to the lack of definitive physical evidence, inconsistencies in the timeline, and the absence of clear documentation as reasons to question its validity. But regardless of where the truth lies, one detail stands out. The activity began during one of the most unstable periods of Jackie's life, and as her circumstances improved, it disappeared. Which raises a question that has yet to be answered. Was something haunting that house? Or was something being created within it?